All right. So I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get started with a PPT and hopefully you all can see that. I'm going to present. Okay, there we go. And feel free to use the chat or since you're the only one here, then you can feel free to just unmute and interrupt whenever you want. I think with the way that we're going to do it, there's going to be a bunch of scenarios, and I think we'll just do them without obviously doing a breakout group. But let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about avoiding academic mistakes and integrating sources. So a lot of the things that Lauren kind of alluded to, we'll be talking about how to do that and how to take sources and put our own thoughts and our own spin to it and integrate them into our papers. As well as how to avoid whether it's accidental or unintentional uh, these academic mistakes, like I said, whether it's plagiarism, cheating, tampering, or falsification. So when we say academic mistakes, what's the first thing that you think of?
In terms of my own teaching experience,
Yeah.
I think it refers to grammar or spelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's what you think of. That's awesome.
What about bigger than that? Like your academic mistakes, maybe, like things you want to avoid.
Deviation from the argument.
Yeah, like misrepresentation.
That's the most serious mistake.
Yeah. What about copy paste?
Copy paste?
Yeah.
It never occurred to me.
Oh, good.
Interesting.
I want to copy paste.
Yeah, and so kind of when we think academic mistakes and what I'm glad you brought up the other things too, because it can cover so many different areas. But academic mistakes in this context too, and when we're talking about avoiding them, generally we're talking about like cheating, plagiarism, copying somebody's work. Again, like I said, it can be unintentional or it can be something that we do purposefully. And so we want to make sure that we avoid them. And we're going to talk about some scenarios too of how to make it, how to avoid doing these things. Because sometimes when we think academic mistakes, we think of maybe looking at over somebody's shoulder and cheating off of their test, or like Lauren said, copying and pasting. But academic mistakes can be very sneaky sometimes, and we have to learn how to avoid them so that we are being kind of using the outside sources in the best, most ethical way, and making sure that we're understanding the content and including it in our paper and making sure we understand it too. So why is this important? Because there's different expectations from all over the world, in different schools, different countries. Everyone kind of has, whether it's a different country or a different school, has their own kind of set idea of what academic mistakes are, what constitute an academic mistake or getting in trouble for one. And so it's important that we are all on the same page, especially since we're all studying or working at SMU. It's important to know what an academic mistake is within the context of where we are and where we're studying. And then also kind of what I spoke about earlier is making sure that we're aware of all the different forms of academic mistakes, so that a lot of times when we are, whether we cheat by accident or we plagiarize or we paraphrase incorrectly, a lot of times we're not aware that we're making an academic mistake, but we still get, it's still an offense, and it's still something that we shouldn't be doing. And so it's not deliberate. And so you want to be aware of the different forms so that you don't do it by accident, even whether it's on purpose or by accident. And finally, we're not here to scare you or to make you kind of double check your work or get really or become really worried about it or start stressing about copying and cheating. We want to make you aware of what's going on and how to avoid these academic mistakes so that you are able to avoid them and to produce work, especially when we talk about plagiarism or paraphrasing, to produce work that is your own and that you understand fully, and to make sure that you are kind of making sure to avoid those different forms of plagiarism, cheating, tampering, or falsification. So we were going to do breakout groups, but since
Only me.
it's only you, we're going to move to a different form, but we still would love to hear your opinion about these different scenarios. So we have a bunch of them. This is the first one, and I'll read it out loud, and then we can discuss it. So Olivia begins writing her literature review. She finds many journal articles that relate to her research topic, and as she writes her paper, she pulls out sentences from the articles and uses a thesaurus to change a few words here and there. After she is done, she cites the information that she used. Do you think this is an academic mistake? Why or why not?
I think it's intentional academic mistake.
Okay. Yeah.
In some degree, it's a kind of plagiarism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why do you think that?
Because she searched a lot of articles related to her topic, and then just changed a little, maybe word choices.
Yeah.
So in this way, most of her writing came from research journal articles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And she just even though she cited, I think it's important what you said, that she just took out a few words and switched them around, which isn't proper paraphrasing or integrating ideas. So Lauren.
So there's another question. May I ask you?
Oh, yes, please.
What is the proper way of paraphrasing?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. In a few slides, Lauren will be talking about how to go through that, and we'll show examples. But yeah, a great question. But we will definitely be
it's very important for my writing.
Oh, definitely, yes. And it's an important skill to learn too. So I'm glad you asked that, and we will get to that for sure. So yeah, definitely when we are, we want to make sure that we, when we're looking at what could be done differently, is that she should paraphrase properly. So just because looking here, just because she cites the information, doesn't mean that it is properly paraphrased, and doesn't mean that she's avoiding plagiarism in this case, just like you noted. And again, we'll be talking more about how to do this properly in a few slides. So let's look at scenario number 2. So Tamara is a biology graduate student and is writing her research proposal on marine plant phylogeny. Lucky for her, she wrote a lot of background information on this topic in past research papers throughout her undergraduate degree. She edited those old papers, reworked some of the sentences, and included them in her research proposal. Do you think Tamara committed an academic mistake? What do you think?
It depends.
Depends. What are your thoughts?
This situation often occurs in Chinese universities. It is allowed in China, but I don't think it's allowed in Canada.
That's right. So why don't you think? Why don't you think it's allowed? What's your hesitation?
Because in Western academic circle, this kind of situation is, in some degree, a kind of plagiarism. Just a copy from her past papers. It's not permitted.
Yeah, that's excellent. You're exactly correct. And so with this, like you said, it isn't accepted only because it's multiple submissions, and we want to avoid
what?
Multiple submissions. And so, yeah, so because she submitted it more than once and for a grade, and she already wrote it and got, whether it's for publication or for a grade, that's why it's a form of cheating. And it's a form of, that is an academic mistake, like you said. And so that's why when you are writing, or when you are finding resources, or writing a paper, even if you've already written it, you want to avoid submitting the same paper. You want to avoid that cheating aspect. And so even if it's your own work, it still constitutes an academic mistake. So what do you think Tamara could have done differently to avoid this?
She should not learn from her old papers.
Mm-hmm.
She just constructs her current research with her new paper.
Mm-hmm. What could she have used instead of the papers?
Because in the beginning, it is mentioned,
mm-hmm.
she is writing her research proposal mm-hmm. on her marine plant phylogeny. Mm-hmm. So she should establish her new paper on this research rather than copying something from her past papers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so what she could have done differently too, like you said, is not necessarily resubmit old work that she's already submitted, even though it's the same topic. But she could use the sources that she used, the references that she used for the old papers, to revisit them and write original content. She could use proper citations to cite herself. So you can cite yourself as well if your prof allows you. So if you've already submitted it, you can reference yourself and your own papers. And that way your prof knows that you had already submitted this work, or you've already used this same work. And like it says here, make sure that you get your instructors or supervisors' permission to do that, because some profs or supervisors don't allow that. But generally, I think the best bet is to look at the sources, your reference page from those old papers, and to write original content and to write new content based on those topics, to avoid that multiple submissions, to avoid cheating and that sort of thing. And is that clear? Yeah, okay. You're muted.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's a new idea for me.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to do this, is because some of these ideas, we do them without even thinking twice about it, and it's important to have everybody on the same page. So I'm glad that this is something new, and that we're able to kind of shed light on these certain topics. Okay, scenario number 3. Tanwir was working on an analytical case study for his MBA. The professor asked for a minimum of 10 academic articles or sources, and Tanwir found 9 great articles that he analyzed and wrote his paper about. As the deadline approached, he realized that he was missing one and quickly found a great source that supported his findings and just included it in the reference list. What do you think about this? Do you think this is an academic mistake?
I think it's feasible. The only mistake he commits is he should find 10 citation sources at the beginning, rather than in the end, he just makes up the last one to make the 10 sources. That's his only mistake.
Yeah. So do you think it's an academic mistake?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. Even though the article was exactly fit into his topic, even though it was including the same content, the fact that he just found it and then just included in the reference list without using the material of that paper in his own research or analysis makes it an academic mistake. And this is a form of falsification. So this is a portion or a part of one of those, we'll see an example of all 4 types of the main categories of academic mistakes. And so it's just padding your reference list, changing data, those kind of things all fall under the same category of falsification, and under the bigger umbrella of academic mistakes. So even though it's maybe just a sneaky little thing that someone might not catch, it still constitutes an academic mistake. So kind of in general, when what could have been done differently is giving yourself enough time to do the research, to read through the relevant source material and include it in your paper accurately. It would have been even better if he just included 9 sources and submitted it as is and maybe lost some points, as opposed to committing an academic mistake. As well as if you're finding trouble finding resources, ask the research help desk at the library. Are you familiar with the research help desk?
In 2018, I observed English literature course in the English department of Dalhousie University. So I'm a little familiar with how to go to the library in Dalhousie University.
Okay.
As for the research help desk, no.
Okay, so the research help desk, they're all online right now and they have a live chat. So if you go to Patrick Power Library, they have a link to just research help desk. And if you're finding trouble getting information on a certain topic, if you give them what you're looking for, they can really guide you in the right direction of what source to look for, where to find those articles or books. And it's a really great way to find material, especially if you're having a trouble finding relevant information on your topic. So that's just an aside to make sure you're not being like Tin Weir and using fake sources or not using the correct sources. So we're going on to our last scenario. So Tanya has engaged a tutor to help her better express her ideas. The tutor edits Tanya's draft paper and makes changes to her wording, her phrasing, and rewriting some of the sentences that are unclear in order to improve the paper. What are your thoughts? Do you think this is an academic mistake?
Of course, because in my opinion, it's the tutor who finishes this paper rather than Tanya who finishes this paper.
Yeah, exactly. And this one is it's sometimes we think tutors are there to fix our work or to change our work. But a tutor, especially if you are, and we'll talk more about the Writing Center too later on, but their job is to help you with enhancing your writing and learning about the bigger picture of the constructs of writing, about grammar and punctuation, about flow, about structure, those kind of things. Not there to reword or to rewrite your paper. And so you're exactly right. It is an academic mistake and it is a form of plagiarism for having somebody rewrite your work or again, it's not in your own words. So it falls under that academic mistake.
May I ask a question?
Oh, yes, of course.
If the instructor in Writing Center helped me to make another picture, the structure of my writing, is that a kind of plagiarism?
No, not at all. If it's about like changing the structure and helping you understand how to, let's say you're asked to write a research essay, an analytical essay, and they helped you with the structure of how it should look, that's not at all plagiarism, or it's more about helping you understand that bigger picture of writing, right? They're not rewriting your words. They're not telling you to write this instead of this. It's more about that structure and helping you understand what an analytical essay looks like, that kind of thing.
In my opinion, structure is more important than wording.
For
grammar.
Sure. Yes, definitely, because it helps the flow and it helps the understanding of the paper as well, definitely. And so what could have been done differently is that she could have revised her own paper, obviously, and use the tutor's suggestions instead of having him or her rewrite it for her completely. So that's just, and I'm sure you understand kind of the differences between the two. This one's a kind of an obvious one, but it's just important to remember too, when we are going to tutor, to make sure that it's our own words that we are using. So this just kind of falls into the category of the different categories that we've talked about. And we'll be providing you with a handout at the end, so you don't need to kind of, we're not going to go through and read all of it, but some of the things, the major categories that we look at when we look at academic mistakes are plagiarism, cheating, falsification, and tampering. And so plagiarism and cheating are the main ones that we usually think of, not citing or paraphrasing too closely, just like the example we saw. Cheating can be submitting the same work for more than one course, so that multiple submissions example. Sometimes it can be collaborating with peers or with your friends in the class when it's supposed to be individual work, so that constitutes cheating. So just be wary of those things. Falsification, like we saw, padding your resource list or your reference list, changing data points to get the result that you're looking for. That's a form of falsification. And then tampering, we didn't see an example of that, but that could be destroying or hiding, whether it's library material or university material, anything that you would hinder another student's learning, or just even altering or destroying programs or files. That counts as tampering, and that falls under academic mistakes. And so these are kind of the general subcategories. And well, at the end, I'll provide kind of a resource list, and the academic calendar, I don't know if you've seen it, for graduate students. It provides a lot more information on these topics with examples and talks about sanctions and penalties and those kind of things. So definitely check it out. But yeah, this is just an overview of the different types. And I believe our next integrating sources, so that'll be Lauren next. But do you have any questions about plagiarism or academic mistakes that you want to ask before we move on?
As for the 4 points, I'm familiar with plagiarism and cheating.
Mm-hmm.
This is my first time to listen to tampering.
Yeah.
A new word for me.
Yeah, and it's a lot of students are not aware that tampering counts as an academic mistake, and it can even be hiding a library book or destroying a file. Anything that really hinders the learning process for you and for other students. So it's definitely when I post the link to the academic calendar, it's a really good read to go through, just to make sure you know what you're looking at too. But yeah, I'm glad that was we could help with that aspect of it, and it's just something to be aware of. It's rare sometimes, but it's good to know about. But yeah, any other questions before I pass it on to Miss Mackenzie? Okay. All right. To you.
Hi. So my computer just died, and of course it did. So just give me one moment to get set up on this computer.
Mm-hmm.
I know
so
why there's only me in the group, because you changed the time from the morning to the afternoon. A lot of my classmates are living in different time zones.
Oh, okay.
So the afternoon in Halifax is the early morning in their time zone. That's the reason why they can't join in this discussion.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about integrating sources. So when we talked about this a little bit earlier about like using your sources, and the point that I really want to make today is that it's important when we include sources in our work that we include the source as it is intended, not as we need it to be, right? So when we use only certain parts of a source and we ignore other parts of the argument or the research, that's called cherry picking. And cherry picking, like picking fruit from a tree, but just picking the best fruit, not picking the fruit that's old or rotten or that's not ripe or not sweet, only picking the best, right? That's cherry picking. And when we do that with our sources, with our research, what happens is we're like, okay, I need something that supports this idea that I have. So then I go and I look through a source for a sentence or two or a paragraph that agrees with me. And then I use that to support my argument. So the reason that that is a problem is because the part I'm taking out of context, right? I'm taking a section of the research that agrees with me, but ignoring other parts that may not agree with me and taking it out of context. And the problem is that Jennifer McDonald, Dr. Enns, they've read everything that I will ever read. And so they will know if the parts that I have chosen really represent that author's ideas or not, right? So thinking about the audience, my audience are professors. Your audience, the person you're writing for, is a professor, and they are very knowledgeable about their area of research. So they are much more knowledgeable than we are, right? So we can't really trick them by saying, although we may try, by saying, oh, and this author agrees with this idea. And they say, well, actually, that's a misrepresentation of that author's ideas because they disagree in this part of their research, or their research actually contradicts what you've said. So this is not a good feeling, and it's also an academic mistake, right? So the way to avoid cherry picking is to really treat everything you read with the same kind of thought, like the same kind of process. So I am going to treat every reading like it has main ideas, it has some supporting research, and it has some findings, some conclusion, some result. And so I'm going to identify the same aspects in everything I read. I'm going to look for the same parts in each of those. So like, what is the method of this author? What is their research question, and how do they answer their research question, and what are their findings? This means that I can't read every article in a lot of detail. We just don't have time. So that means looking for those key parts of the readings, right? Identifying those key aspects and making sure before you include a reference that you feel you have a good understanding of not just a paragraph, but of the main idea that follows throughout the whole reading, right? So the way we include research is there's three ways, just three: paraphrasing, summarizing, and direct quote. All three of these. So Katie, Amanda and Shui, can you see the PPT?
Yes,
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay. So do I have control of the Amanda, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna next slide me. Okay, so Shui, we will send you this presentation. I don't want to take time now together to read this, but I want to just bring your attention to a few points.
Thank you.
So to summarize is to reduce, to take
Reduce.
large text and to reduce it. I like to think of a summary as like around 10% of the original.
10% of the original.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, that depends, of course. It's not a rule, it's just a guideline. And I like to think of summarizing. The goal of the summary is to reduce. That is my first goal. When I paraphrase, my first goal is not to reduce. My first goal is to reword, is to say what the author has said in my own words. So if the author has said something really important, for example, like really their main thesis, their main argument, I am going to paraphrase that. That means it's probably going to be around the same length as the original. And the point is to state in my own words what the author has stated. I'm going to reword, I'm going to restate. That's the goal of the paraphrase. The goal of the quote is to bring even more focus and more attention to a smaller part. So we're going from big to small, right? Summary is the biggest, paraphrase is the middle one, quote is the most specific. And here I'm going to recite word for word exactly what the original says. All three of them require a citation. That means I want to include the author details. Depending on if I'm using APA or MLA, the author name, the year, and the page number, some combination of that information is always required when we're talking about someone else's work. Author last name, family name, year, and page number. But that depends, again, if you're using APA or MLA. I think you use a lot of APA in the IMTE program. And in APA, we include those three pieces of information: name, year, page number. Okay, so Amanda, could you go to the next slide, please?
I made you host. You should be able to, so that you can have control. I don't know. Hopefully you can. If you can't, I'll do it.
Well, I don't have it open.
Oh, okay. Weird. Let me see if I can.
Ooh, thank you. Okay. So here is I don't know what I'm pressing. I'm just pressing all kinds of buttons right now. Pardon me. Here we go. Here's a process for paraphrasing. So the reason I chose paraphrasing to talk about here is because I think it's actually the hardest skill. The summary, once you get the hang of writing a summary, it's pretty easy. It's like, what is the main idea? What is the topic of this article? And what does the author say about it in as short a time as you can? But the paraphrasing requires the most linguistic or language work, right? So when you read, so the first thing really is like identifying that passage, identifying the text. Maybe it's a paragraph, maybe it's a couple of sentences that are really important. And you're like, you know, I really need to include this in my paper. And the best way for me to include this is to paraphrase it. So it's not to summarize, it's not to direct quote, you want to paraphrase, right? In general, the paraphrase, I feel, is around like the paragraph level. And so a summary is at the article level, paraphrase is at the paragraph level, and direct quote is at the sentence level, is sort of how I break it down. Is that okay so far, Shui?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. So read for understanding. That means you've identified this is a really important passage. I want to include this. And then it's getting distance, putting it away and writing in your own words what you understand that to be. Going back and forth, then maybe looking at the original. Okay, I do have a good understanding of this. I have not changed the author's original ideas. Really important. Circling, highlighting, keywords. When you can find synonyms, you should. But you should not look for synonyms for very technical or specific words because it does not make sense. For example, if I'm talking about the brain, I am not going to look for a synonym for a brain because that does not make sense and it would seem strange, right? So where I can find synonyms for keywords, I will. Then I start to personalize it. That means I start to write it in my own words, using those synonyms and finding ways that I can make changes to the grammar. For example, I might want to use active voice or passive voice, depending on what the original uses. And I might want to change the order of my within a sentence. And I can do that, with using making more complex sentences, using relative pronouns, that, this, then. I can also make changes based on changing sort of like verb tense. I can go from past, simple past to simple present sometimes. But what I don't want to do is change the order of the ideas or change the ideas themselves. I say same idea, fresh language, right? Same idea, fresh language. And this is a really challenging but important skill. And it takes time to feel like you're really good at paraphrasing, because I feel that this is a very specific writing and thinking process. So if you don't feel like today you're the best paraphraser, then please don't worry, because neither am I and neither is Amanda. It's a skill that you're always developing and always working on. And then when I finished, I want to go back to the original and I want to see that they reflect each other, but that they are sisters, not twins, right? That they are from the same family, same idea, but that the language is fresh. It's clear what section I have paraphrased, but I have not plagiarized because I have made enough changes to the language. Is that okay? So here's a passage. Okay, good. So here's a passage. Now you'll see at the bottom, there is a hyperlink to this document. So this document that I have chosen a paraphrase from, I found this very useful. It's a way of integrating or using sources in your writing, and it has some really good tips. So I decided to paraphrase, summarize, and direct quote from this handout, and that you see the hyperlink to this PDF. And you can, I hope that you will go check it out. So
can I take a
I'm not
photo
going
of
to read
this page?
Yes, and we will send you this PPT.
Okay.
So you can have it.
Got it.
You can use it as you. Yes. So what you see here is, this is the beginning of my paraphrasing process. I have highlighted some key words that are easy for me to find synonyms for.
Yeah, yes.
And I've made in bold, in the dark black, I want to use that as a direct quote, because I feel like the author has said that really perfectly, and I could not do a better job. So I want to include that as a direct quote. So that's why I made it bold. And then I've sort of just circled, highlighted some of the language that I think will help my my reader to really understand what I am talking about, what this handout talks about, what the handout discusses. So I'm going to Amanda, can you go to the next slide? So there's the original, and now here's my paraphrase. So you can see that it is around the same length as the original. You can see that at the beginning, I have included where I got the source, the Yale College Writing Center. And then I offer a little summary of the document that I am talking about. I give the title of the document, 8 strategies for using sources, and I include the author's name and the year. And then I include my direct quote, and my final sentence is really explicit or clear paraphrase of the previous one. So I've kind of combined. And the reason I did this is because this is what I like to do with my own research. Every source I use, I do all 3 things. Every source I use, I summarize, I paraphrase, and I direct quote. That shows that I am not cherry picking. I am not finding what is just convenient for me, but that I am trying to really communicate what the author has said. And if the author and I disagree, no problem. I just say that. Like you were saying about your response, Shui, that, you know, I don't agree with either of these theories. I want to present my own, right? And it's really great academic practice to express our disagreement. That's really important that you do that. So the way we do that is by saying, you know, the author says this and I say that, right? And it's and that's a very good approach to take. That's critical thinking. So I think you can probably take a slightly longer or more in-depth look at this if you like to see the language changes that I've made, but we don't have to look at it in too much detail right now. So here are some, you're welcome. Here are some tips for paraphrasing, just to give a little more context, a little more details and information about what I've said today. And next slide, please. So this is what a in-text citation looks like in APA, MLA, and Chicago. So showing that really you need the same information. It's just the format of the information that looks different when we use a different style, right? So if you're using an APA, like I said, we use the last name, that is the family name, and we use the year and we use the page number. Notice where the brackets are, notice where the periods and the punctuation is. It all matters, it's all important. And next slide.
And sorry, just to jump in quickly, we have, we'll be talking about some of the resources too on the Writing Center website of where to find style guides for the different departments. That'll help you, and they have all of kind of a breakdown of all the different kinds of ways to cite different sources, and just like Lauren said, all of it is important, and we'll have links for those as well. So don't feel like you ever have to memorize. Yeah, exactly, you got it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, super helpful, and I'm sure you've probably been using it quite a bit. So keep on.
So Amanda is going to talk about a reference management tool. Now, Amanda, my computer died, so my paper that I was going to show is on my dead computer. So I wonder if you are able to show Shui some basics of the reference management tool. Can you handle that, or do you want me to try to sort it out?
No, that's fine. The only thing is, which I've found in my class as well, is when you share, the students don't get to see the pop-ups. when you're sharing your screen.
Okay.
So that's the only thing. I don't know if it'll be beneficial to share. I can show where to find the link. And we'll go through it in a second. But I don't know, Shui, if you've used any of these reference management tools to basically organize your resources and your references. So just like we talked, you'll be, with your research and with your writing, you'll be finding a lot of different sources, and maybe you've already found quite a bit of articles, and you're reading, like you showed us, readings and books and all of these things. So it's going to be good to have, as your references and your resources pile up, it's important to find some sort of tool or a management tool to organize those resources and to make it a little bit easier on yourself. And so why is this important? Just like I said, it's a really great way to stay organized and to keep track of your sources as well. Sorry, one sec. My computer froze. Okay, to keep track of your sources and to make sure that you are you have everything. Sometimes you might not need all the sources that you have, but it's a really great way to keep them organized into lists, and to be able to import all of those references into your paper as in-text citations. And these resources, and I'll show you in a second, do it automatically. And it helps you to avoid any unintentional plagiarism or cheating by, maybe if you forgot to reference a source, or if you forgot to include a source that you really liked, or you couldn't find the citation for it. It's just a really good way to keep all of those references organized. And just a note, even though it does keep them it does generate these references in the style that you're looking for, a lot of times it's not 100% accurate. So you should always double check against like using your style guide or using a credible source to make sure that the reference that's been generated is accurate, because sometimes it does generate inaccurate full references or even in-text citations. But generally, especially as you start to get more sources, I really recommend you use some sort of reference management tool just to keep them organized, to keep your information in order, your references in order. And it'll make it easier at the end, so you're not scrambling at the end of your paper trying to fill in, oh, this reference goes here, this goes here, especially when you've been doing it all along. It just makes like it says here, game changer. It really changes the way that you write, and it takes off that pressure too at the end so you're not scrambling to get all your references in order. And so some of these tools, I don't know, maybe you're familiar with some of them, but there's RefWorks. So RefWorks is usually paid, something that you pay for, a program. And it's pretty popular. But through your SMU email, if you go through the library, you're able to get a free subscription to it. So that's, if you're interested in this one, it's definitely good to check that out. You don't have to pay for it. There's also EndNote, which is also a paid one, but the university doesn't, it's not through the university. So that's just a separate management tool. You have Mendeley too. This is a free resource as well. And then you have Word, which I'm going to try and show you where to access that. But I'm sure when you write your papers, you're using Word correct?
Yeah, so I'm using Word.
Word, okay, perfect. And so the nice thing about what we're going to show you now in Word is that you can directly use their citation tool. And
really?
Yeah, and keep track. And it's
the
free.
First time to know.
Yeah, and a lot of students aren't aware that this is a tool that's available. And I'm just going to see if I'm going to stop share and then open up a document to show you where you can find it. But essentially, like with all of these, you can keep track as you're typing, you can keep track of citations, full references, and you can make automatic in-text citations and put them straight into your paper. and you can just, with a click of a button, you don't have to keep retyping them. And then your reference list at the end is complete once you have all of your references inputted. So it's it's a great time saver, and it's a really great organizational tool. And so just give me 1 second to escape and then stop share for a second. Let me just open up a Word doc quickly. And I'll show you quickly just where you can find it. And then let me share screen.
Let me try.
Here you go. Yeah, and you can, if you'd like to follow along, please do. So can you see my Word doc, my Word document?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to move this for a second. And so in your Word doc, if you go to reference, sorry, the thing is in the way. Let me just, okay, there we go. If you click on reference, if you're able to see all of these tools here where you can insert a footnote, insert endnote, smart lookup, researcher, and here you can really keep organized. This is a great place to start. Do you see you can pick the style, the bibliography style that you're using. So if you're using APA, you can choose that. There's also MLA. I don't know if you can see my drop-down menu, but I can change it to MLA style. I can change it to, what else is there? Chicago. I can change it to whatever I'm looking for. And you're able to click on citations. So here, I don't know if you can see the pop-up on the side, but if you click on citations, you're able to see where all your list of citations. So I don't have any on this document, but if you were to go to insert citation, and do you have your Word document open? Because I don't think it shows up on the share screen. If you don't, that's totally fine.
I have opened my Word.
Okay.
Let me try.
But if you click on insert citation, you're able to see the type of source.
Type of source.
Yeah. So so you can choose if you want an article, if you want a website. I'm going to change mine to website. And then you can fill in all the relevant information. And you can write, so let me just put, I'm just going to make up a source. www.writing.com. Writing. I don't know, URL, www.writingfor.com, 2010. I'm just making up some random numbers just so that you can see, hopefully it works. So mine is in APA style and I'm looking at a website and I put okay. So here,
wow.
So here you see I have a citation that I created and it's automatically stored under my citations. And then you see here, it automatically generated a in-text citation. So as I'm writing, I can just click on to that citation, double click onto it, and it generates automatically a in-text citation. That's
so this is especially very useful if you cite the same reading for many times.
Yeah, and you can put more than one. So if I wanted another source, I can click on insert citation and I can put a different source and it lists them all on the side and I can double click to include in text. And then at the end, I'll have a built-in bibliography too, this right here. I'll be able to create a works cited of my source. So once I clicked on bibliography, I can click on either bibliography or works cited, and I get a full reference in APA citation. But just as a note, it does make it easier for you, but you want to make sure you're double checking the source or the citation to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Because sometimes these programs aren't as accurate as they can be. But they make your life so much easier. So I definitely recommend the Word because it's free and it's right in your paper. So you can just implement it directly, and it keeps it all organized.
A very beneficial
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah, I'm glad to show it to you, because not a lot of people are aware of it. But yeah, definitely, and play around with it, and include your citations, and get a feel for it, because it really will make your life easier. So I'm just going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share my presentation again. Okay. So that's essentially a rundown of that. Going so fast. And so these are, definitely use them, very useful. And now I'm going to go on, kind of switch gears and into the resources and support. And so there's so many, SMEO offers so many different ways to support and to help with writing, and resources for even academic support. And one of those resources is the Writing Center, and you're probably familiar with it. And I don't know if you've ever booked an appointment, or have made a tutoring appointment, or used any of our handouts. I saw that you used the style guide, which is excellent. But
I had an appointment last week with Emma.
Awesome, yeah. We have the on our site, and if you're, you can, there's so many different resources, free academic resources, whether it's tutoring, whether it is getting handouts or style guides. And this is definitely a great way to kind of track, and to keep track with your writing, to have somebody to kind of support you in your writing journey, whatever it is that you're working on. And Lauren also, you're probably familiar with her work as well, but Lauren, if you want to talk about your kind of what you do too.
Sure. So I guess, Shui, we've met in our writing group, the IMT writing group, but my background is in EAP, English for Academic Purposes. And I've worked with universities and higher education for, the past 20 years or so, with the international students who want to study in North America and Canada, in Halifax, at St. Mary's, at Dalhousie. And also I teach the programs at BNUZ in Zhuhai, in Guangdong province.
Oh,
so
you have been to China?
Many times,
Wow.
times.
It's awesome.
And I miss it very, very much, because I haven't been there since December, but I hope I will go back soon to teach, or just to eat, whatever.
Zhuhai is a very beautiful coastal city in the south.
It's so beautiful.
It's a rich city.
Yeah, it's very developed, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds me in some ways of Halifax, just being so close to the ocean and all the universities, and it really feels like a second home to me. But it just means that most of my work has been with Chinese students in universities, and their sort of unique needs for really succeeding at university in Halifax and in Canada. So the language, the cultural differences, the language differences, the differences in studying in university, because I know from teaching at BNUZ, it's quite different. And those things that may present challenges to international students at St. Mary's is really my job. So I hope that if you have
to know about your job.
Yeah, I mean, like Emma and the other tutors and Amanda, they're very good at working with second language speakers as well. My focus is just sort of like the next level. So you may never need me, but I hope if you do, then you will send me an email or a message.
Glad to know you. As a matter of fact, there is a China program in my home university in China and Dalhousie University. So,
Yeah. So are you Sichuan?
Pardon?
What province are you from?
Shandong province.
Shandong. Yeah, of course. I've met the Shandong students at Dalhousie in the summertime, the technical university students.
Maybe my home university. The name of my home university is Shandong University of Finance and Economics.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I teach at Dalhousie in the summertime. So I have met Shandong students there in the summertime. And yeah, I would love, love, love to go to visit your province. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can come here soon and I can go there soon. Are you
in
Halifax?
I'm not in Halifax.
Okay, good, good. Yeah. Oh, that's why it's the 4 o'clock in the afternoon for you.
It's daytime.
Yeah. Got
it. So just a quick segue into, you're familiar with these handouts and these style guides. So feel free to use any of them. You can even, the handouts on, we cover so many topics from thesis statement writing to proposals to, I'm sure you maybe scoured the site and seen the different kind of handouts that are available. So please, we love when students use them, and you can download them and use them for different classes too.
Thank you.
And really anything that you can think of that pertains to writing. And they're just a great resource to double check your work. And some of them have handouts that you can actually fill in, fillable handouts to help kind of brainstorm and get the, like you said, the structure of the paper. And always there's different resources like Write. It's called Write on Time for quick questions that you can use. And if you have a question that you need answered in a short amount of time, you can utilize that source too. So again, Writing Center, and I have the website right down here. So feel free to use that and to just check out the other resources that are available.
Amanda, I wonder whether I can share this article, Academic Mistakes, with my classmates in IMTE.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to be posting it in the groups, in the graduate Jumpstart groups. So they'll have, I believe they'll have access to that, if I'm not mistaken. But and this will be recorded too and available on our website, so they'll be able to access it as well.
Where can we hear this recording?
So we'll be posting it on our, under the graduate, I believe it's Graduate Jumpstart page.
Graduate Jumpstart.
Yeah, and so we'll be announcing that, of course, in the graduate writing groups, and then we'll make that available to everybody.
I think it's a great pity for them not to join in this lesson. It's very beneficial.
Yes, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and it's helpful.
Thank you. Thanks, Shui.
And then finally, we have the graduate academic calendar that I referenced earlier. And then this is I have the link here so you can access it directly. But this is what it looks like. It is a document. It's not super exciting, but it has a lot of important information regarding courses and regarding, I have here page 10 to 13. That covers academic mistakes and in more detail, and it talks about sanctions and penalty and the examples of what different academic mistakes can look like as well in more detail. So definitely check it out as a whole, as a whole article. It's super helpful. But those specific pages kind of relate to academic mistakes, and it's just good to inform yourself and to be aware of those different things. So yeah, check that document out. And Q&A time. If you have any questions, Shui, or anything you want us to clarify, please feel free. I know we're a little bit over time, but feel free to ask away, and we're happy to answer.
No questions, because you have told me a lot of details about how to avoid academic mistakes. This is a precious lesson for me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad it was useful and helpful to you.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
nice to meet you too today.
Nice to meet you.
You as well.
And Shui, I hope I see you on Friday for our writing group.
No problem.
Great.
Awesome. And so this will be available, and we'll make it available to the writing groups, and then eventually it'll be posted on the website. So your peers will be able to access it as well.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I think we're all done, and
Only one question.
Yes.
Just now, Lauren mentioned Friday's writing lesson. In that lesson, are all the students required to write something?
So the point of our writing group is for you to have a block of time to write. You do not have to give me anything. You don't have to submit anything or show anyone anything. You can if you want to. And I have had some of the other IMTE students show me what they produce in our writing block. But no, the only point of our time is for us to be there together, to work together, to support each other in our work.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. Glad to say that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shui.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening and for participating. It was lovely to meet you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.